As Rome grew more and more powerful, many Celtic tribes decided to cooperate with the rising Mediterranean giant, instead of warring against it. The Kingdom of Noricum is a great example of that. Historically considered to be the first state-like entity in the area, was a confederation of different Celtic tribes united under a single ruling body. It had a great strategic location in the eastern Alps, controlling mountain passes towards the Apennine Peninsula and the goods flowing through its routes, like amber. Additionally, its iron, ferrum Noricum, was coveted and praised by the Romans and all surrounding peoples. Formal relations with Rome developed at the latest in 186 BC and continued to evolve, eventually achieving a treaty of friendship. While tribes like Taurisci and Iapodes still proved a threat, Rome now had a friend at its northeastern border, allowing it to focus on the massive campaigns and conquests that brought large parts of Western Europe into the fold. Throughout this period, the Noricum trade and prosperity intensified and a local coinage was developed as a medium of exchange. Noricum was annexed around 15 BC, in a largely peaceful manner. By this time, its pragmatic population had been Romanized to a high degree and the desire for trade and progress outweighed one for a war. When talking about the Kingdom of Noricum, we can't pass by the opposite side of the same coin, the before-mentioned Taurisci. The Celtic tribe of Taurisci were one of the first tribes along with Boii to leave their home in Gaul. Following the eastern migration route by the Danube River, they eventually settled in the strategic area between the eastern Alps, Adriatic and Pannonian Plain. They gradually consolidated the area and established lively commercial and military contacts with the surrounding Celtic, Illyrian, Veneti and Germanic tribes. Taurisci were a warring tribe, their raids were mentioned across multiple scriptures and authors. They were not shy of pillaging and were predominantly hostile toward the Roman state. A coalition of Taurisci, Boii, Geisati and Insubres marched on Rome in 225 BC and were defeated at the Battle of Telamon. This removed direct Celtic threat to Rome itself and allowed the spread of its power northward, towards the Po Valley. In 186 BC, a horde of 12,000 armed men crossed the Alps, in order to settle in the lowlands by the northern Adriatic. The Romans, threatened by this force and considering all land up to the Alps theirs, expunged this force and built their own city there, Aquileia. These Celts were most probably Taurisci, but this incursion was just another in many series of events that reminded the Romans of the aggressive nature of Celts, and the necessity to Romanize all of the Cisalpine Gaul. Aquileia solidified Roman foothold in these lands, and served as a commercial center for the nearby friendly tribes. Slaves, cattle and hides from the Celtic lands were exchanged for wine, olive oil and seafood, and the Baltic amber flowed from the far north. Ironworking also played a big role in the Tauriscan economy, which was adopted and improved from the preceding Hallstatt craft. Besides the improved metallurgy, the Celts also brought new iron tools and potter's wheel to the areas they settled. The power of Taurisci dropped significantly around 40 BC when the military coalition of them and Boii was annihilated in a battle against Dacians, and the Roman Empire soon annexed their territory. One of the biggest questions regarding the Taurisci is their involvement with the Kingdom of Noricum. Were they allies, enemies, one people, or neighbors? The terms of Noricum and Taurisci as tribes were to a degree used interchangeably. The term Noricum was sometimes described as an older designation for Taurisci and other times is considered a confederation of multiple tribes, while the Taurisci were a single peoples. If Taurisci were a part of the Kingdom of Noricum, they probably had a large role to play. However, Taurisci had a longer and repeated history of conflicts with Romans compared to other neighboring chiefdoms, acting on their own or in cooperation with non-Norican tribes of Histri, Iapodes, and Carni. A big distinction is also coins. The Noricum coins depict horse and its rider, while Tauriscan depict only horses. Unlike the tribal union of Noricum, which was most likely led by a king, the Taurisci were instead supposedly led by a council of elders. A further example is the Oppidum of Celea, where they also minted Celtic coins, and was a center for both Taurisci and Noricum. Without a doubt the lives of Taurisci and Noricum were interconnected in many ways. Perhaps some and not all Taurisci were a part of the Kingdom of Noricum, the borders of which also fluctuated with time. The different coins and foreign policy to Rome indicate separate entities, but the blurry line between them is as unresolved today as it was confusing for the ancient writers. The relationship between these two was not always friendly either, and it was changing with time. Which of these people came first, and if these were at first a single entity which then split, remains unknown. The most probable theory we have today is that even Taurisci were a union of different tribes, some of which were included in the kingdom of Noricum, while others remained more autonomous and hostile towards Rome.